The silence after battle was almost worse than the fighting. Captain Yunji stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching recovery teams search through debris fields. They were looking for survivors, for bodies, for anything that could be saved from the wreckage. "Final casualty count," she said quietly. Her tactical officer read from his screen, voice heavy. "Human forces 4,312 dead, 6,000 wounded. Velthron military 8,000 dead, 12,000 wounded. Civilian casualties," he paused. "Still counting." Yunji closed her eyes. So many names, so many lives. The Resolute and her entire crew. Lieutenant Seojin and Navigator Jae-ho. Private Hanbit had survived, but hundreds of other Marines hadn't. Every number represented someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. Admiral Taeyang's face appeared on the screen. She looked older than she had 3 weeks ago. "Captain, we're organizing a memorial service. Humans and Velthrans together. Can you attend?" "Yes, ma'am," Yunji replied. "I'll be there." The memorial was held on a beach of Velthros Prime. The water was calm, reflecting the stars above. Thousands gathered, both species standing together in grief. They read names, human names and Veltran names, spoken slowly and carefully by both species. When they said Captain Guyong and the crew of the Resolute, a Velthran child came forward. She had been on one of the evacuation ships they saved. She placed a glowing flower in the water, a Velthran tradition for honoring the dead. When they said Lieutenant Seojin and Navigator Jae-ho, Commander Sung-ho stepped forward. He placed 2 rifles in the sand, a human military tradition. A Velthran officer placed 2 glowing flowers beside them. The Velthrans performed their ceremony of tides. They released thousands of bioluminescent seeds into the ocean. The seeds would grow into living monuments, coral structures that would glow for centuries, remembering those who died. The humans played taps on a single trumpet. The haunting melody drifted across the water. Many Veltrans didn't understand the music, but they understood grief. Many wept, their tears glowing softly in the darkness. Admiral Taeyang stood beside Coordinator Sunwoo. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. 2 warriors who never wanted war united in the cost of victory. In the days that followed, the real work began. Velthros Prime needed rebuilding. The harvester conversion zones had left scars across the planet. Human engineers and Velthran workers labored together, clearing rubble and replanting the living structures. Archaeologist Chaewon was examining the Nexus's remains when she found something extraordinary. Deep in the destroyed core, she discovered data archives, information on hundreds of civilizations the Harvesters had destroyed over thousands of years. "Look at this." She showed Admiral Taeyang and Captain Yunji. The holographic display showed star maps with marked locations. "These are distress signals. Some are centuries old, some are still broadcasting." Yunji felt her stomach turn. All these species called for help, and nobody answered. "Until now," Taeyang said quietly. The discovery reached Earth within hours. The United Earth Council convened an emergency session. The debate was intense. They had just barely survived one battle. The fleet was damaged. Thousands were dead. Should they really go looking for more fights? Ambassador Minho stood before the council again. He looked tired, wearing a black armband in memory of the fallen. "We went to Velthros Prime because someone needed help," he said. "That choice defined us. Now we know there are dozens more civilizations out there, facing the same threat. Some are fighting right now. Some are dying as we speak. We have a choice. We can focus on ourselves, build up our strength, and hope the harvesters don't come back. Or we can answer the call." A council member from the Asian sector stood. "We've already lost thousands. You're asking us to risk more human lives for strangers." "I'm asking us to be who we said we were," Minho replied. "When we heard the Velthron signal, we didn't ignore it. We didn't wait, we went. If we stop now, what were all those deaths for?" The vote took longer this time, but eventually it passed. Earth would answer the calls. On Velthros Prime, Captain Yunji met with Coordinator Sunwoo and the Velthran Council. They had a proposal ready. "We want to formalize our alliance," Sunwoo said. "Not just for this battle, but for the future. We propose the Coalition of Free Worlds. Any civilization willing to stand against tyranny and extinction can join." Diplomat Jiwon, who had been working on the legal framework, presented the treaty. It establishes mutual defense, shared technology, and most importantly, a commitment to answer distress calls. The treaty was signed that evening in a ceremony broadcast to both Earth and Velthros Prime. Humans and Velthrons watched as their leaders pledged to stand together, not just as allies of convenience, but as partners in a larger mission. The rebuilding continued. Engineer Yuna was promoted to head a joint research initiative. The combination of human and Velthran technology had proven devastatingly effective. Now they would develop it further, peacefully. Imagine what we can create together when we're not fighting for our lives, Yuna said to Wu Jin as they designed the new research center. Imagine what we can teach each other, Wu Jin agreed, his patterns bright with enthusiasm. Dr. Junho established the first cross-species medical academy. Human doctors and Velthran healers would train together, learning both approaches to medicine. Already hybrid treatments were saving lives that neither species could have saved alone. Commander Sungho began training integrated combat units. Human Marines and Velthran fighters learning from each other. The Velthrans taught underwater combat and stealth. The humans taught armor tactics and heavy weapons. Together they became something new. In the shelters, the bonds formed during the battle continued to grow. Sergeant Minjae found himself teaching engineering to Velthran children. Velthran parent Nari showed human soldiers how to grow food in the ocean environment. Friendships formed across species lines. 3 months after the battle, the first coalition vessel was completed. She was called the Hope's Answer, built by both species from the beginning. Her hull combined human armor with Velthran organic systems. Her weapons were hybrid technology. Her crew was mixed, humans and Velthrans working side by side. Captain Yunji, promoted to Commodore, took command. Her mission: follow the distress signals in the Harvester archives. Find the civilizations that were still fighting. Answer their calls. Before departing, she recorded a message. It would be broadcast across all known space in every language the Coalition could translate. To any civilization hearing this transmission, you are not alone. If you are facing extinction, if you are under attack, if you have called for help and heard only silence, hear this now. We are coming. The Coalition of Free Worlds stands ready to answer your call. Hold on, fight if you can, survive if you must, but know that help is on the way. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. We heard you, and we are coming. The Hope's Answer launched with both human and Velthran crew members. On the bridge, Commander Sungho stood beside Velthran Combat Coordinator Isil. Engineer Yuna worked with scientist Wu Jin. Dr. Junho trained medical staff of both species. They jumped to FTL, heading for the nearest distress signal. Behind them, Velthros Prime and Earth began building more ships. The Coalition was small, but it was growing. 5 years later, the Coalition included 17 species. Some had been saved from harvesters. Others had joined after seeing what cooperation could accomplish. Each brought their own technology, their own culture, their own strengths. The harvesters were in retreat across multiple sectors. They had never faced coordinated resistance before. They had never encountered species fighting for each other instead of themselves. The equations didn't work anymore. On Earth, in a classroom, Daeun taught students about first contact. She was the one who had first detected the Velthran signal, so long ago on that Neptune monitoring station. Now she helped prepare the next generation. We could have ignored that call, she told her class, which included both human and Velthran children. We could have stayed safe. But we learned something important that day. A Velthran student raised a glowing hand. Her parents had survived the battle. What did we learn, Teacher Daeun? We learned that the measure of a civilization isn't its weapons or its technology, Daeun said. It's what it does when others need help. It's whether you stand with your friends when things are hard. It's whether you answer the call. A human student asked, will there always be people who need help? Daeun looked out the window. Human and Velthran children played together in a park. In the sky, ships bearing the Coalition emblem departed for distant stars. Probably, she admitted. The galaxy is big and there will always be threats. But now there will always be those who answer. That's what we built together. That's what all those people died for. She pulled up a hologram showing the Coalition fleet. Dozens of ships, each one carrying crew members from multiple species. Each one heading toward someone's distress call. Every one of those ships carries a promise, Daeun said. When you call for help, we will hear you. When you face the darkness, you won't face it alone. That's what the Coalition means. Outside, a Velthran child's toy broke. A human child helped fix it. It was a small thing, but it meant everything. The sensors detected them first. 10,000 ships emerging from the darkness of space, moving with perfect mechanical precision. At the center was something that made even Admiral Taeyang pause. The Nexus, a construct the size of a small moon, its surface covered in weapons and processing facilities. Dear God, someone whispered on the command deck. Taeyang's voice cut through the fear. All ships to battle stations. This is what we prepared for. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. The Indomitable led the combined fleet into position. Human ships retrofitted with Velthron organic systems moved alongside Velthron vessels, enhanced with human weapons. It was a strange fleet born from desperation and cooperation, but it was all they had. Captain Yoonji watched the approaching armada on her screens. They outnumber us 100 to 1. Then we'll just have to hit them 100 times harder, replied Dong-Yun, trying to sound more confident than he felt. The battle began at extreme range. The harvesters opened fire first, launching clouds of self-replicating missiles. But the human Velthron fleet had prepared for this. Bioelectric spores released from Velthron ships filled the space between the two forces. The spores disrupted sensors and guidance systems. Now, Yoonji commanded. All weapons, fire! The human dreadnoughts unleashed their railguns through the electromagnetic fog. The harvesters couldn't see the shots coming until tungsten penetrators were already tearing through their hulls. Explosions rippled through the enemy formation. Wing Commander Soman led her fighter squadrons into the chaos. Her pilots had trained with the new hybrid systems. Their missiles adapted in real time, learning from each defensive measure the harvesters employed. Blue Squadron hit their left flank, Soman ordered, her fighter dodging return fire. Red Squadron, go low and come up through their formation. Don't give them time to adapt. The fighters moved like a school of fish, unpredictable and fluid. The harvesters tried to target them with mathematical precision, but the pilots flew with creative chaos that the machines couldn't calculate. On board the cruiser Resolute, Captain Guyong watched as a cluster of harvester ships broke through their defensive line. Heading for the civilian evacuation vessels behind them, 300 transport ships filled with Veltron refugees unable to defend themselves. They're going for the civilians, his tactical officer reported. Gyong didn't hesitate. Helm, put us between them and those transports. Engineering, I need everything you can give me. Captain, we're already at maximum. I didn't ask for maximum. I said everything. The Resolute accelerated, her engines burning beyond their safety limits. She positioned herself directly in the path of the harvester assault. The enemy ships opened fire and the Resolute's shields began to fail almost immediately. Sir, we can't hold this position, someone shouted over the alarms. Gyong looked at the evacuation ships on his screen. Thousands of lives, families, children. He thought of his own family back on Earth. We don't have to hold forever, he said calmly. We just have to hold long enough. The Resolute's hull was being torn apart. Systems were failing across the ship. But Gyong and his crew kept fighting, kept the ship between the harvesters and the refugees. When the end came, Gyong gave one last order. Override reactor safety protocols. Authorization Gyong Alpha 7. His crew understood. Some cried. Some saluted. All of them stayed at their posts. The Resolute's fusion reactor went critical. The explosion consumed the ship and took 300 harvester vessels with it. The civilian transports escaped to safety, carrying survivors who would never forget the humans who died to save them. On Velthros Prime's surface, Commander Sungho's Marines were fighting a different kind of battle. Harvester ground forces had landed, massive processing machines that were converting entire city blocks into raw material. Team Delta hit them from the left, Sungho shouted into his comm. Echo Team covering fire! Private Hanbit found himself separated from his squad, holding a narrow canyon pass that led to a civilian shelter. Harvester units were advancing, and he was alone. His ammunition counter was dropping fast. This is Hanbit, he called on the radio. I'm at checkpoint 7. Enemy is pushing hard. Civilians are still evacuating behind me. Hold position, came Sungho's voice. Reinforcements are coming. How long? 20 minutes. Hanbit looked at his ammunition. 5 minutes, maybe. He thought about calling for immediate extraction. He could probably make it out, but the civilians wouldn't. Understood, Commander. I'll hold. For 17 minutes, Private Hanbit fought alone. He used every trick he knew. Set traps with his remaining explosives. Collapsed parts of the canyon to slow the enemy. When his rifle ran dry, he used his sidearm. When that was empty, he used grenades. When those were gone, he fought with his knife and his armored fists. Reinforcements found him unconscious, buried under rubble, but alive. The checkpoint still held. Every civilian had escaped safely. Velthron militia leader Isul led her people in underwater operations. The harvesters were poor swimmers, their dense metal bodies not designed for aquatic environments. The Velthrons used this weakness ruthlessly. They attacked from below, using human explosives in ways the Marines had taught them. They disappeared into cave systems the machines couldn't navigate. They struck and vanished like ghosts in the deep water. The humans fight on land and in space, Isul told her fighters. We fight in the water. Together we give them nowhere to hide. In orbit, the battle raged on. Engineer Yuna and scientist Wu Jin had prepared their masterstroke. A virus, part digital code and part biological algorithm, designed specifically to attack the Harvester network. The problem is delivery, Yuna explained to Captain Yunji. We need to get it directly into the Nexus. That thing is the central intelligence. Kill it, and the whole fleet loses coordination. So we need someone to fly through an entire enemy fleet, penetrate a moon-sized fortress, and upload a virus, Yunji said. Sounds simple. Lieutenant Seojin volunteered immediately. He was the best stealth pilot in the fleet. His co-pilot would be Jeho, a Velthron navigator who could sense electromagnetic fields in ways humans couldn't. They launched in a small stealth craft, carrying the virus on an isolated drive. The ship was tiny compared to the battle around it, slipping between the larger vessels like a minnow among whales. Harvester patrol at 3 o'clock, Jeho said, his skin flickering as he sensed their scanning beams. I see them, Seojin replied, adjusting course. Hold on. They weaved through the battle using debris as cover. Twice they were nearly hit by friendly fire. 3 times they thought they'd been detected, but Jeho's unique senses gave them an edge. He could feel the enemy scanners before they locked on, giving Seojin precious seconds to evade. The Nexus loomed before them, vast and terrible. Its surface was covered in weapons platforms and shielding, but Jeho guided them to a weak point, a place where the shields cycled for a fraction of a second. There, he said, now. Seojin pushed the engines to maximum. They shot through the gap just as the shields reformed behind them. Alarms screamed as they raced along the Nexus's hull, looking for an access port. I have it, Jeho said, pointing to a maintenance shaft. But we've been detected. Defense systems activating. Automated weapons opened fire. Seojin's ship took hits, systems failing. We're not going to make it back, he said calmly. Then we make sure this counts, Jeho replied. They crashed into the maintenance shaft, the impact nearly killing them both. Bleeding and broken, they crawled from the wreckage. Seojin activated the virus drive and plugged it into the nearest interface. The virus began to spread, but it spread slowly, being fought by the Nexus's defenses. It needed time to propagate through the system. We have to protect it, Jeho said, taking a human rifle despite never having used one before. Harvester repair drones converged on their position. The 2 pilots fought with everything they had, buying precious seconds for the virus to work. In the Nexus's core, something unprecedented was happening. The hybrid virus was unlike anything the Harvester intelligence had encountered. The digital code attacked with brutal efficiency, exploiting every vulnerability. But the biological component did something worse. It evolved. Every time the Nexus adapted its defenses, the virus changed. It learned, it grew. The Velthran biotechnology gave it creativity. The human programming gave it aggression. Together they created something the machine mind couldn't comprehend. The Nexus tried to understand what was happening. It analyzed the virus. It analyzed the battle. It analyzed the humans and Velthrons fighting together. And for the first time in its existence, the Harvester intelligence felt something like fear. It couldn't understand cooperation. It couldn't understand sacrifice. In its calculations, every being should act for self-preservation. Yet here were species fighting and dying for each other. Here were individuals sacrificing themselves for strangers. The logic didn't work. The mathematics made no sense. And in that moment of confusion, the virus struck deep. The Nexus began to scream across every frequency. Its consciousness fragmented. The thousands of Harvester ships connected to it convulsed as their central intelligence died. On the Indomitable, sensors showed the entire enemy fleet losing coordination. Ships collided with each other. The temporary command center was set up in what remained of Velthros Prime's capital city. Human and Velthron personnel worked side by side, though neither had done anything like this before. The air was filled with the sounds of 2 species trying to communicate, coordinate, and most importantly, survive. Admiral Taeyang stood at a holographic display with Sunwoo, the Velthron strategic coordinator. They made an odd pair. Taeyang was tall and solid, with gray hair and a face marked by years of military service. Sunwoo was graceful and fluid, his blue skin glowing softly in the dim light. "The main fleet will be here in less than 2 days," Taeyang said, studying the projections. "We destroyed their scout force, but this is something else entirely." Sunwoo's patterns flickered with worry. "Our orbital platforms are destroyed. Our defense fleet is gone. Your ships are damaged and far from any support. How can we possibly survive this?" Captain Yunji joined them at the table. She had dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep, but her voice was steady. "We find a way. That's what we do." A Velthron scientist named Wu Jin approached hesitantly. He carried what looked like a living tablet, its surface rippling with data. "Excuse me, but I may have something useful. Our biotechnology could potentially enhance your weapon systems." That caught Taeyang's attention. "Explain." "Your weapons are powerful but fixed. They fire the same way every time. Our organic computing can adapt in real time. If we combine them..." Wu Jin's pattern shifted to excited yellow. "Your missiles could learn. Your targeting systems could evolve during battle." Engineer Yuna appeared from the back of the room. She had been listening. "That could work. Our AI is fast but predictable. Organic computing is slower but creative. Together we might have a chance," Yunji finished. The collaboration began immediately. Yuna and Wu Jin set up a joint lab in one of the surviving buildings. Other human engineers and Velthron scientists joined them. At first, communication was difficult. The species thought differently, approached problems from opposite directions, but slowly understanding grew. "You see everything as a battle," Wu Jin observed as they worked on a prototype smart missile. "Every problem is an enemy to defeat." Yuna nodded, adjusting a circuit. "And you see everything as a living system. Every problem is an organism to understand. Perhaps that is why we need each other." In the medical section, Dr. Junho was having similar revelations. He was trying to treat wounded Marines and injured Veltrans with equal success. The biology was completely different, but pain was universal. A Velthran healer named Heiyun showed him how their medicine worked. "We don't fight the injury. We convince the body to repair itself faster. We work with nature, not against it." Junho watched as Heiyun treated a burned Velthran civilian. The healing gel she applied was alive, guiding the damaged tissue to regenerate. "That's actually brilliant. Can this work on humans?" "I don't know. Shall we find out?" They spent hours testing carefully with volunteers. They discovered that while Velthron healing technology couldn't completely cure human injuries, it could help. Similarly, human surgical techniques could save Velthron lives in ways their medicine couldn't. Down in the underground shelters, a different kind of connection was forming. Marines had been assigned to protect Velthron civilians in the bunker systems. Sergeant Minjae found himself surrounded by Velthron children who had never seen a human before. The children weren't afraid. They were curious. They touched his armor with gentle fingers, their skin glowing with rainbow patterns. One child, barely waist-high, tugged on his hand and showed him a broken toy. Minjae didn't speak Velthron. The child didn't speak English. But he understood. He sat down, took out his repair kit, and fixed the toy. The child's patterns burst into happy gold, and suddenly all the children wanted him to fix things. A Velthron adult named Nari watched this with amusement. She approached Minji and, through a translation device, said, "Thank you. They have been so scared." "Kids are kids," Minji replied with a shrug. "Doesn't matter what planet they're from." Nari showed the Marines how to cultivate emergency food from spore pods. The Marines taught Velthrans how to build shelters from rubble. Despite having no shared history, no common culture, the two species found common ground in the simple act of helping each other survive. Back in the command center, preparations continued. Commander Sungho was training the first mixed combat units. Velthran volunteers who wanted to fight stood beside human Marines. "The harvesters are machines," Sungho explained through translators. "They think in patterns. They expect logical behavior, so we're going to be completely illogical." He demonstrated guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks using the environment as a weapon. The Velthrans were natural swimmers and could move through their ocean world in ways humans couldn't. The humans had armor and firepower the Velthrans lacked. Together, they began to develop new strategies. But late that night, Captain Yunji sat alone in her temporary quarters. Her second officer, Dong Yun, found her staring at casualty reports. "We lost 300 people in the first battle," she said quietly. "That was just the scout force. The main fleet is 10 times larger." Dong Yun sat down beside her. "I know. The math doesn't work, Dong Yun. Even with everything we're doing with all this cooperation, we're going to lose." "Maybe," Dong Yun admitted. "But I remember something from history class. Humanity has always done its best work when the odds were impossible. When we were told something couldn't be done, we did it anyway. We're stubborn like that." Yunji smiled slightly. "Stubborn. That's one word for it. The Veltrans needed help, we came. That's not going to change just because it's harder than we thought." A message came through from the science lab. Yuna and Wujin had a breakthrough. Yunji and Dong Yun headed down to see. The lab was a mess of human technology and Velthran organic components, somehow working together. Yuna was grinning. Wujin's patterns were bright, excited yellow. "We did it," Yuna announced. "Hybrid biodigital missiles. They learn from each shot, adapt their approach, evolve their penetration algorithms. The more the harvesters try to defend, the smarter our weapons get. We can retrofit your existing arsenal in 30 hours, Wu Jin added. "It won't be enough to win by itself, but it's a start." That night, something unexpected happened. A Velthran historian named Chaewon requested an urgent meeting with Admiral Taeyang. She brought ancient data from their civilization's archives. "I've been researching the harvesters," Chaewon explained, her patterns dark with worry. "I found records from other civilizations they destroyed. The harvesters don't attack randomly. They target species based on perceived threat levels." "What kind of threat?" Taeyang asked. "Technological advancement. Potential for growth. The Velthrans were selected because our biotechnology was approaching a critical threshold. We could have become a spacefaring military power within a few generations." Taeyang understood immediately. "And now, by helping you, by showing what human military technology can do, you've marked yourselves as an even bigger threat," Chaewon confirmed. "The harvesters will come for Earth eventually. By saving us, you've condemned yourselves." The command center went silent. Every human in the room understood the implication. They had crossed the galaxy to help strangers, and in doing so had brought doom to their own world. Admiral Taeyang stood up slowly. She looked around at her people, then at the Velthrans who had become their allies. "Then we'd better destroy them here," she said calmly. "All of them. Because I'm not leading these machines back to Earth." Coordinator Sunwoo approached her. "You knew this might happen. You came anyway, why?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Taeyang said simply. "Sometimes that's all the reason you need." Sunwoo was quiet for a moment. Then his patterns shifted to a deep, steady blue. Throughout the city, every Velthran's skin began to glow the same color. It spread like a wave, visible even from orbit. Millions of Velthrans showing a sign of eternal bond. "In our culture, this color means family," Sunwoo explained. "Not by birth, but by choice. You chose to stand with us. We choose to stand with you. Whatever comes, we face it together." Taeyang felt something catch in her throat. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. In the shelters, Velthran children and human marines saw the blue glow and understood. In the medical centers, doctors and healers of both species worked with renewed purpose. In the labs, engineers and scientists pushed harder, knowing what was at stake. The human fleet began repairs with Velthran assistance. Organic armor was grafted onto damaged hulls. Hybrid weapon systems were installed. The two species' technologies merged in ways neither could have achieved alone. Commander Sungho stood on a hill overlooking the city. Beside him was Isol, a Velthran who led a civilian militia group. They couldn't speak each other's language well, but they didn't need to. "Big fight coming," Sungho said. Isol's translation device repeated it in Velthran. She nodded. "Big fight. We ready?" "Yeah," Sungho agreed. "We're ready." Above them, the stars shone bright. Somewhere out there, the harvester fleet was approaching, an unstoppable force meant to erase civilizations from existence. But now they would face something the machines had never encountered before. Two species standing together, refusing to die quietly. The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel to a scene of horror. Captain Yunji gripped the arms of her command chair as the viewscreen filled with burning debris and dying ships. "Report," she shouted over the blaring alarms. Multiple hostile contacts, her tactical officer called out. Thousands of them. They're swarming the planet. The Velthron orbital defenses are failing. Yunji watched as a Velthron defense platform exploded in a ball of fire. The harvesters looked like massive angular insects made of black metal. They moved in perfect coordination, cutting through the Velthron defenses like a knife through water. Some were as small as fighters. Others were the size of battleships. All of them were harvesting the planet below. Get me Admiral Taeyang, Yunji ordered. The Admiral's face appeared on screen. She was on her own ship, the Dreadnought Defiant, which had emerged from FTL on the other side of the battle space. I see it, Captain. We're too late to stop them from starting. But we're not too late to finish this. A new signal came through, weak and distorted. The communications officer routed it to the main screen. A Velthron appeared, his blue skin flickering with orange patterns of distress. Behind him, explosions lit up what looked like a command center. This is Jinseo of Velthro's Prime Military Coordination, the alien said, his voice automatically translated by the ship's computer. Are you the humans? Did you really come? We came, Yunji said firmly. We're here to help. What's your situation? Catastrophic, Jinseo replied. The harvesters arrived 3 days ago. They're converting our cities into raw materials. Millions are dead. Our weapons barely scratch them. We have civilians trapped all over the planet. Yunji looked at her tactical display. The human fleet was outnumbered at least 20-1. But the harvesters hadn't noticed them yet. They were too focused on the planet below. We'll buy you time to evacuate, Yunji said. Get your people to safety. We'll handle the machines. Jinseo's patterns flickered with confusion. You're going to fight them? All of them? But you're so few. Yunji smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We humans are very good at fighting. Just watch. She closed the channel and opened a fleet-wide broadcast. All ships, this is Captain Yunji. You see what we're up against. These machines think they can destroy a civilization without consequence. Let's teach them what happens when humans get angry.
All weapons free.
Show them what we brought from Earth. The Indomitable opened fire first. Her railguns launched tungsten penetrators at a significant fraction of light speed. The metal slugs hit a cluster of harvester ships and tore through them like they were made of paper. Secondary explosions rippled through the enemy formation. The other human ships joined in. Missile swarms launched from the cruisers, each warhead guided by advanced targeting AI. Plasma cannons on the destroyers burned through harvester armor. Laser batteries carved precise lines through enemy hulls. The harvesters finally noticed the newcomers. They began to turn, redirecting their forces to meet this new threat. Here they come, the tactical officer said calmly. Let them come, Yunji replied. Helm, evasive pattern Delta. Keep us moving. Weapons, don't stop firing. The battle became chaos. The harvesters attacked with mathematical precision, but humans fought with creative fury. When the machines tried to surround them, the human ships scattered and regrouped. When the harvesters formed defensive walls, the humans punched through with concentrated fire. On the planet's surface, Commander Sung-ho led his Marines into hell. 2,000 soldiers dropped from orbit in armored pods that screamed through the atmosphere like meteors. They crashed down in the middle of a harvester conversion zone. Sung-ho was the first out of his pod. His powered armor made him strong and fast. His plasma rifle turned a harvester worker unit into molten slag with a single burst. Around him, his Marines deployed with practiced efficiency. Spread out, Sung-ho ordered. Teams of 4. Find any civilians and get them to the evacuation zones. Kill anything that moves on legs of metal. The Marines moved through the ruins of a Velthron city. The beautiful coral structures were being torn apart by harvester machines. Some were collecting material. Others were processing it. A few were clearly combat models with weapons that fired superheated plasma. Sergeant Minjae's team found a group of Velthron civilians trapped in a collapsed building. The Velthrons were terrified, their skin flashing with panic colors. They had never seen anything like the human Marines before. It's okay, Minjae said, though he knew they couldn't understand him. He gestured for them to follow. His team formed a protective circle around the civilians as they moved toward the evacuation point. A harvester combat unit appeared around a corner. It was twice the size of a human with multiple weapon arms. It opened fire immediately. Minji's shield absorbed the first hits. His teammates returned fire, their plasma weapons burning into the machine's armor. It kept coming, adapting its shields to their frequency. Switch to kinetic, Minjae shouted. The Marines pulled out their backup weapons. old-fashioned guns that fired explosive rounds. The Harvester's shields were designed for energy weapons. Bullets tore through its body and it collapsed in a shower of sparks. Back in orbit, Engineer Yuna was working frantically in the Indomitable's analysis lab. She had managed to capture a disabled Harvester fighter. Now she was tearing it apart, looking for weaknesses. "They're networked," she muttered, scanning the machine's core processor. "Every unit shares data through a quantum link. That's how they coordinate so perfectly." She ran simulation after simulation. If she could disrupt that network even for a few seconds, it might give the fleet an advantage. "Captain," Yuna called over the intercom. "I have an idea, but it's going to sound crazy." "I like crazy," Yunji replied, dodging a Harvester missile barrage. "Talk to me." "Their network uses quantum entanglement for communication. I can build an EMP drone that vibrates at the same frequency. It won't destroy them, but it'll confuse them. Make them lose coordination. How long?" "Give me 30 minutes. "You have 20, Yunji said, then cut the channel to focus on not dying. Yuna worked faster than she ever had in her life. Her hands moved across the controls, assembling a prototype from spare parts and Harvester components. With 2 minutes to spare, she had it ready. "Launching now," she announced. The small drone shot out of the Indomitable's launch tube. It flew into the thickest part of the Harvester swarm and activated. A pulse of electromagnetic energy rippled outward. For exactly 4 seconds, every Harvester in range stopped moving. Their perfect coordination broke. Ships collided with each other. Attack formations fell apart. 4 seconds was all the human fleet needed. "All ships focus fire," Admiral Taeyang commanded. "Hit them while they're confused." The human fleet unleashed everything they had. In those precious seconds, hundreds of Harvester ships were destroyed. The enemy swarm, which had been slowly pushing the humans back, suddenly found itself in disarray. On the surface, Commander Sung-ho heard the change. The Harvester units around his position suddenly stopped coordinating. They began making mistakes, attacking separately instead of together. "Push forward," he shouted. "Now's our chance." The Marines advanced, clearing sector after sector. Feltran's civilians were guided to evacuation ships that landed under the cover of Marine fire teams. It was brutal, exhausting work, but slowly, they were winning. As the sun set on Velthros Prime, the immediate battle began to turn. The Harvester scout force was being destroyed. Burning wreckage filled the orbit. On the ground, the conversion zones were being reclaimed. Jinseo contacted the Indomitable again. His patterns were different now, flickering with something that might have been hope. "You're actually doing it," he said in disbelief. "You're beating them." Captain Yunji allowed herself a tired smile. "We told you, humans are very good at fighting." But as she looked at the long-range sensors, her smile faded. The tactical officer saw it too, and his face went pale. "Captain," he said quietly, "we have new contacts. Deep space. They're big." The main Harvester fleet had arrived, and it was enormous. Yunji stared at the sensor data. Thousands upon thousands of ships. The force they had just fought was nothing compared to this. This was an armada designed to consume entire civilizations. "Get me Admiral Taeyang," she said, "and someone tell Commander Sung-ho to evacuate everyone he can. We have 48 hours before they get here." She looked out at the damaged human fleet and the exhausted crews. They had won this battle, but the real war was just beginning. The water world of Velthros Prime had known peace for 3,000 cycles. The Veltrans, a species of graceful aquatic beings with skin that glowed soft blue in the darkness, had built their civilization in harmony with the endless oceans. Their cities floated on the surface, connected by bridges of living coral that grew according to their designs. They had no weapons of war. They had never needed them, until the machines came. Hyun stood before the Elder Council, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with distress. He was old, even by Veltran standards, and had served the council for 200 cycles. But never had he felt such fear. "The scouts report the same thing," Hyun said, his voice carrying through the council chamber. 17 colonies have gone silent. Every planet shows the same pattern. The machines arrive, consume everything, and move on. They will be here in 2 weeks. The council members shifted uneasily in their water-filled seats. They had all seen the reports. Entire worlds stripped down to bare rock. Populations of billions simply gone. The machines, which the Veltrans called harvesters, left nothing behind. "What can we do?" asked another council member. Our defenses are designed to redirect asteroids and regulate weather. Not to fight, Hyun took a deep breath. I propose we send a distress signal. Broadcast it on every frequency we know. Perhaps someone out there will hear us. Perhaps someone will help. The chamber erupted in argument. Send a signal? Reveal their location to the entire galaxy? What if something worse than the harvesters heard them? What if nobody came at all? But as the debate raged on, everyone in the chamber knew the truth. They had no choice. In 2 weeks, the harvesters would arrive. In 3 weeks, the Velthrons would be extinct. The vote was close, but it passed. That night, Velthros Prime began broadcasting its cry for help into the void of space. Far across the galaxy, on a monitoring station orbiting Neptune, a human named Daeun was finishing her shift. She worked as a communications officer, which meant spending 12 hours a day listening to the background noise of space. It was usually boring work. Radio waves from distant stars, cosmic radiation, sometimes interference from Earth's own satellites. But tonight was different. Daeun sat up straight in her chair as her equipment lit up with activity. Signals were coming in on multiple frequencies at once. She adjusted her headset and listened. It wasn't random noise. It was structured, mathematical, a message. Her hands moved quickly across the controls, running the signal through translation algorithms. The computer worked for several minutes, building a language database from scratch. Finally, words appeared on her screen. We are the Velthrons of Velthros Prime. We face extinction. The harvesters will destroy our world. If anyone hears this, please help us. We have no weapons. We have no defenses. We are dying. Please, anyone, help. The message repeated over and over. Daeun felt her heart racing. This was first contact. Actual alien life reaching out across the stars. And they were begging for help. She immediately called her supervisor. Commander Jiwon arrived within minutes, still pulling on her uniform jacket. She read the message 3 times. Get me Earth Defense Command, Jiwon said quietly. Right now. Within hours, the message had reached the highest levels of Earth's government. Admiral Taeyang, commander of the United Earth Defense Fleet, sat in an emergency session with the World Council. The translated message played on loop for all to hear. The debate was intense. Earth had only recently unified after centuries of wars and conflicts. The scars were still fresh. Humanity had spent the last 50 years building a fleet not for exploration, but for protection. Nobody knew what was out there in the galaxy, and now they had their answer, something that destroyed entire civilizations. We should help them, said Ambassador Minho, standing before the council. We have the technology. We have the ships. We have trained soldiers. If we turn away from this, what does that say about us? It says we're smart, countered a council member from the European sector. We don't know these aliens. We don't know this enemy. Why should we risk human lives for strangers halfway across the galaxy? Minho's voice remained steady. Because if we don't, we're telling the universe that humanity only cares about itself. These beings are facing extinction. They sent out a call for help, not knowing if anyone would answer. We have the power to answer. The question is, do we have the courage? The vote took 6 hours. It was close. But in the end, humanity chose to help. Admiral Taeyang stood on the bridge of the EDS Indomitable, humanity's most powerful warship. She was a massive vessel, built in the orbital shipyards above Mars. Her hull was reinforced titanium ceramic composite. Her weapons could level a city from orbit. She had been built for war, though she had never seen real combat. Until now. Captain Yoonji, status report, Taeyang said. Captain Yoonji, commander of the Indomitable, stood at attention. All systems ready, Admiral. The fleet is assembled. We have the Indomitable, 5 cruisers, 12 destroyers, and support vessels. Total crew complement, 15,000. Marine Force, 2,000 under Commander Sung-ho. Taeyang nodded. She looked out at the fleet assembled around her flagship. Every ship represented years of human engineering and preparation. Every crew member had volunteered for this mission. They all knew the risks. Commander Sung-ho joined them on the bridge. He was a veteran of the border wars, a conflict that had helped unite Earth under one banner. His Marines were the best humanity had to offer. They had trained in zero gravity underwater in frozen wastelands. They were ready for anything, or so they hoped. The wormhole route is mapped, Yoonji reported. We can reach Velthros Prime in 3 weeks using the jump gates. The Velthrons have 2 weeks before the harvesters arrive, Taiyang said quietly. We'll be a week late. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. They would arrive to find the Velthrons already under attack. This wouldn't be a rescue mission. It would be a battle. Then we'd better move fast when we get there, Sung-Ho said, his hand resting on his sidearm. Marines don't leave anyone behind. That goes for aliens, too. Taiyang allowed herself a small smile. All ships, this is Admiral Taiyang. We are departing for Velthros Prime. Our mission is simple, answer the call. A civilization is dying and they asked for help. We're going to give it to them. All hands to stations. Engage wormhole drives. The Indomitable's engines flared to life, burning bright blue against the darkness of space. One by one, the ships of Earth's fleet followed their flagship into the unknown. On Velthros Prime, Hyun received word that their message had been received. Someone had answered. Someone called Humans was coming to help. He wept with relief, his bioluminescent tears glowing in the dark water. They had been heard. They were not alone. But as he looked up at the sky, he saw the first signs of the harvesters' approach. Dark shapes moving between the stars. They were early. Hyun sent one more message into space, hoping the humans would receive it in time. Hurry, please hurry. They're here.